Today, we're going to be taking a look at some of the most overpaid players in the NBA today. This gets a little tricky when you're comparing players because of the new TV deal. If you're out of the loop, the NBA signed a new television deal for 9 years and $24 billion. It complicates things because the salary caps and salary floor for teams are becoming so high that NBA teams are having to just throw money and overpriced contracts at players. So the reason it gets so tricky is because great players with the old contracts are getting paid much less than the other players that are getting their new contracts today. But I still believe these 10 players shouldn't be getting paid as much as they are either way. For reference, the new TV deal took effect starting in 2016 and 17 season. So everyone who signed a deal in the 2016 offseason or after pretty much got a lot more money. We're gonna do the best we can, so let's get started. Number 10, Steven Adams. In October 2016, after the TV deal, Steven Adams signed a 4-year, $100 million contract for the Thunder. On that team, he brings a contagious effort and gets under the other player's skin. He's great under the rim and in transition. His post game still needs some work, but he's a great defender and he's definitely got the potential and the right attitude to keep getting better because he's only 24 years old. He had his best year in 2016 and 17, averaging 11 points and 7 rebounds. But are these stats and his upside really worth $100 million? He's currently the second highest player on the Thunder, above Paul George and Enes Kanter. For the 2017 and 18 season, he'll be making $22 million, while Russell Westbrook, who also signed his contract after the TV deal, will be making $28 million. I think this is a little too high for a 4th-year player and center that isn't in the top 10 centers in the league. Number 9. Another 4th-year player, Otto Porter. Otto Porter was picked by the Wizards with the 3rd pick in the 2013 NBA draft. He led his team to a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament and was a finalist for the Naismith Trophy and Wooden Award. The Wizards have had high hopes for him to be their 3rd or even 2nd best player one day, and he's been developing on the right track, having his best year in 2016 and 17, averaging 13 points, 6 rebounds, but only 1 assist per game. So in the offseason, the Nets offered him a $104 million max contract to make him the rebuilding Nets' next centerpiece to build around. It makes sense that the Nets would overpay to try to steal him from the Wizards, who would have had to match any offer on Otto Porter to keep him, but $104 million still seems pretty high. In comparison to his teammates, the deal seems alright though, since Bradley Beal has a 5-year, $127 million contract, and John Wall's is for 4 years and $170 million. It's up for debate whether Otto Porter deserves the money, and we'll see if he proves himself for it. And maybe that's just the way all contracts will be for the younger players moving forward. Number 8, Allen Crabbe. Allen Crabbe is another player from the 2013 NBA draft. The 2013 draft class got lucky on how the rookie contracts ended, right when the TV deal was being brought into effect. Crabbe, in 2015 through 2017, averaged 10 points per game on slightly over 40% shooting from 3. He's been the backup shooting guard to CJ McCollum, so he hasn't been a bad player off the bench, but once again in the 2016 offseason, the Brooklyn Nets offered an overpriced offer sheet worth 4 years and $75 million, which the Trailblazers would match. Crabbe has been a good bench player and has improved every year since he's been in the league, and the Nets have been aggressively trying to recruit young talent, so they've been willing to pay extra. But compared to Damian Lillard's 5-year, $139 million, and CJ McCollum's 5-year, $106 million contract, it seems a little much since he hasn't completely proved himself yet, but for the Nets, they ended up getting him anyways because they traded for him in the 2017 offseason, so it all worked out in the end. Number 7, the most overpaid player on this list by far, Chris Bosh. Bosh signed a $118 million 5-year max contract in 2014. Now that's not an overpriced contract for the kind of player Bosh was, but for the fact that he's going to be getting paid $52 million for the 2017 and 18 and for the 2018 and 19 season is insane. His contract was guaranteed, so he'll be getting paid by the Miami Heat and league insurance. This isn't included in the Heat's salary cap because of new CBA rules, so it's a good thing for the Heat, but still definitely deserves a spot on this list because it's an active contract for a player that's retired. Number 6, Mike Conley. Mike Conley is one of the most overpaid players in the NBA because he has one of the biggest contract of point guards at 5 years and $150 million, even though he's barely in the top 10 point guards in the league. It makes sense if you look at it from the Grizzlies' perspective because of what he does for the team, and it seems that they want him as the point guard for the rest of his career. But if you look at it from a league perspective, where he's only had 1 season averaging 20 points a game, it seems like a bad investment. But hey, that season was in 2017, so maybe it was an investment that'll pay off soon. Number 5, Drew Holiday. In 2017, Drew Holiday signed a 5-year, $131 million contract, giving him the 6th highest point guard contract in the NBA. This seems extremely high since he's not even close to the top 10 point guards in the league. Drew Holiday's contract puts him at a bigger one than Chris Paul, Kyrie Irving, and Isaiah Thomas. It's crazy to see how high these NBA contracts are getting, since Drew's getting paid so much and he's only had one All-Star appearance and has battled countless injuries. It makes sense though because the Pelicans have had the money to spend, since their only notable big players are DeMarcus Cousins and Anthony Davis. But for such a big contract, I'm surprised they didn't save it to pursue a bigger name point guard. Number 4. Paul Millsap. In 2017, Paul Millsap signed a 3-year, $90 million contract with the Denver Nuggets. This puts him making the 3rd highest salary in the NBA for the 2017 and 18 season. An average salary of $30 million per year seems too much for a player who just had their best year, averaging 18 points a game in 2017. Millsap played great for the Hawks and is on a streak of 4 consecutive All-Star appearances and getting better every year. But even with that, he's definitely not even close to being deserving of being the 3rd highest player in the NBA. Number 3. Chandler Parsons. In 2016, Chandler Parsons signed a max 4-year, $94 million contract with the Grizzlies. This gives Parsons a similar contract to the one signed by Kawhi Leonard, Kyrie Irving, and Paul George, but theirs were all 5-year deals, which puts Parsons ahead of them. So far, Chandler Parsons peaked in his 3rd year in the NBA in 2013 and 14, with career highs of 16 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and 1.2 steals a game. These aren't stats of a max player, and neither were his stats after signing the new contract of 6 points, 2 rebounds, and 1 whole assist a game. This was because he was plagued with injuries for this season, tearing his meniscus, which is never a good sign of things to come. Even besides his injury-filled season though, of only 34 games, his stats have been declining every year since 2014, and it's left me wondering why he was ever offered that max contract in the first place. Number 2. Joakim Noah. Joakim Noah was for a short period of time one of the top view centers in the NBA. He was a 2-time All-Star and 2014 Defensive Player of the Year. 2014 was by far his best season, where he averaged 12 points, 11 rebounds, and 5 assists a game. And his stats have dropped pretty low since then. In 2014 and 15, his averages fell to 7 points, 9 rebounds, and 4 assists. And in 15 and 16, they plummeted even further, when he lost his starting spot and only played 29 games due to injuries. So after leaving the Bulls, the New York Knicks offered him a 4-year, $72 million contract. To nobody's surprise, after the 2016 and 17 season, the conclusion was that the Knicks still overpaid. He averaged 5 points, 8 rebounds, and 2 assists after suffering more injuries. Sadly, it already seems he's played the best he ever will. Number 1. Evan Turner. Evan Turner has been one of the most disappointing draft picks in NBA history, so it's shocking to see him get a 4-year, $70 million contract in 2016. When his potential was still there, it would have made sense to invest in a player that may develop, but after bouncing around the league and proving that he isn't what everyone anticipated, it's shocking that the Trailblazers would pay Evan Turner so much. He's been a good bench player for most of his career, but only averaged 9 points a game in 2016 and 17, with a 10 point per game career average. So it's left many people and myself wondering why Portland would offer him so much money. And the question will continue to stand until his contract runs out. Thank you guys for watching. See you next video.